Hello, welcome back. We are so excited today to dive into a question that we hear all the time from our participants in our workshops, where it's a common frustration, especially for certain types, where they are really frustrated and having a hard time understanding why people say no to
Mm.
things. And so that is what we're tackling today is when are people prone to say no, and when are people prone to say yes, and what do they need in order to feel safe in those answers?
Love it. Let's do it. Okay, but before we get into specifically in that, why do we say no anyway? Like, what is the impetus? I mean, Chelsea, you're the one with like a kid. When do you notice the kid saying no the most, or or when do you and I say no the most?
Mhm. For the kids, I notice saying no when they need to exert control over something or they need to feel like they have a voice.
Mhm.
I have a 4-year-old and an almost 15-year-old, and so we have like if they're saying no, it's about different things, but really for the same reason where they're trying to really gain that independence.
Mhm.
So that's what I see the most from them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as we get older, I don't know that that changes. I
Yeah.
don't think it actually changes at all. And what I witness is when people are saying no, they're saying no to different things for different reasons, but there's usually a form, some sort of protection.
Yeah.
Some sort of like, if I say yes to this, it will take something from me. Now that is different from each of the types, but there's a guardedness that comes with that. And now let's be clear that saying no is not always a bad thing. And sometimes it's actually a really, really good thing to say no.
Yep. Well, and what we'll uncover with this is that some types are going to say no really easily, and some types have a really hard time saying no. And so the different circumstances that could arise that someone will feel like they can or cannot say no. I mean, it can be a level of safety, even like, do I feel safe saying no? Is it safe for my connection and for my relationships to say no? Is it safe for my physical well-being to say no, or do I need feel like I have to say yes? And so
Mhm.
that's a layer of it too, where which is again, it's what you just said, like what is that potentially taking from me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we both talked about so many times is that really drilling down into our yeses and nos has so much to do with when we believe we are safe, whether that is true or not.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so like oftentimes we are protecting with our either our yeses or our nos, we are protecting old versions of what safe looks like.
Yes. Well, and
Mhm.
I think it's important that we talk about what safety means because,
Okay.
we talk about this when we do workshops, we introduce this subject, but more with these podcasts, I guess. Um,
Conversation that we are having.
these conversations, we haven't really introduced that. And so, when it comes to safety, Whitney, what do you mean by that when you
Mm.
say safety?
Oh my goodness. Oh.
I
Um,
know.
what do I mean by safety? What I've realized safety is for me personally is that I I can survive my own circumstances and I can survive other people making choices and creating circumstances that I would not choose.
Mm.
That I am safe being held by other people. I am safe in the decision making of others. And even if it's the wrong choice, I can still survive that. That I am able to go with the flow, or even if I don't like it, that I can survive the choices of others. That is really what safety is for me. And that I have everything I need within myself in order to navigate what is next, no matter what the choice was that was made. So I can release control in the moment and just trust that I am safe no matter what.
Yeah, and that's what it is for an 8. And when I we talk about safety, it comes from that. Well, for me, it usually comes from, am I safe in my physical space? Does it feel joyful? Like if something doesn't feel joyful, it doesn't feel safe. If it doesn't feel, so for you and I both, safety looks, well, maybe similar in some ways, also looks really different. And so when we're talking about the Enneagram and through that lens, that's what we're talking about when we say safety is what is that adaptation that each type takes on in order to feel safe based on early childhood experiences.
Mm.
Lots of nature and nurture stuff that we're not going to get into here, but what feels safe and creates safety for all of us is
Yeah.
not the same. And so sometimes when we're frustrated with other people, that's one of the things that we're actually missing or we're misinterpreting is that what feels like safety to us does not feel like safety to them. What doesn't feel safe to them, we might be like, why is that even an issue?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so just even that context, I think will help in this conversation too.
So we're going to break down each type and what each type says no, and then conversely, what they're prone to say yes to based on the subconscious ways that we try to keep ourselves safe.
Mhm.
And we're going to actually come at this from a place where they haven't, maybe have not yet grown and chosen differently, like with the default spaces, because I do not do this flawlessly, but now I am able to say both no and yes differently
Mhm.
because I trust that I am safe.
Mhm.
Like baseline, I am safe. And that my nervous system understanding that has changed my yeses and nos drastically in ways that I don't even know that I'm 1,000% aware of. I think pe
Oh
other
yeah.
people are witnessing it more in me sometimes than I am,
Yeah.
because I am just naturally experiencing different nos and yeses.
Yeah. Yeah. So to that point, we're approaching this from gut instinct without any growth. Like what is our default setting,
Mhm.
not what we get to grow into. We get to talk about that in like future
Yeah,
discussion.
maybe that's the next conversation. What do
Oh,
yeses and nos start to look like when we're growing? Okay, so baseline, here we go. Should we start with should we start with
let's
eights?
start with eights. Yeah. We'll end with sevens.
Yeah, yeah, and then we'll finish with sevens. Okay, so eights. What do eights say? Chelsea, you unfortunately have to experience this all the time. What does an eight say no to baseline to keep themselves safe?
Yeah. I mean, it's I noticed this a couple different ways. One is if you actually said this earlier, if other people's decisions, if the outcomes feel disruptive to you,
Mhm.
like if someone else's decisions are going to impact an eight's sense
If
of
I
control.
feel like I'm gonna have to clean it up,
Yeah.
if I feel like I'm gonna have to come in and use all of my strength and effort to clean it up, or redirect it, or I can see in my head, I can see the big picture. I'm like, no,
Mhm.
no, because
Mhm.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to come in and save you from yourself, which
Yeah.
is just the most self-righteous thing ever. Like, I don't need to even save that person from that thing. But
Yeah.
that's part, these are part of the renego we'll talk about that in another podcast episode. So
Yeah.
when the eight might have to save someone, clean something up. When else would a eight say no?
Yeah, the other thing that came up for me when you were saying that is if you just don't trust the strength and power
Mm,
of the other person.
yeah.
And that probably connects to
Mhm.
have to clean up the mess.
Yep.
But or if you don't trust the situation, if it's like honestly even like a gut feeling, just like immediately no. But I
So
will say, eights, although eights are so self-assured and confident and almost righteous in their no,
100%.
eights can be swayed.
Hmm.
If it's
How,
not
Chelsea?
yeah.
You do this to me all the time, with me, for me, all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing if you want an eight to say yes, or if an eight does eventually say yes to something, that shift in their no is really about them having trust in the other person, having confidence in the other person's strength. Like when you say no to something and I say yes, or we're having that back and forth, it's the way that I always get you on board with what I'm thinking is by not backing down and not coming at you either, but just coming prepared, right? Like I am strong in my information. I know what I'm talking about. I feel passionately. That is when an eight can be swayed. But if someone is coming in with like oh, well, I don't know, not certain of themselves, then you're not going to change their mind.
I think when does an eight say yes? An eight
Mhm.
says yes when the person in front of them is such a yes.
Yeah.
And like I might, as an eight, I might not say yes immediately. Like my gut reaction is to control the yes and no. And it's not the best part of my personality, but I want to be in control of when it stops and starts, or if it stops and starts.
Yeah.
But I think when I do say yes, it's the person in front of me is proposing something, and I believe in the person, not even the idea, the person.
Yes. Yeah. I
Hmm.
love that.
Hmm.
Let's
Okay,
talk about nines.
let's do
Oh,
it.
yeah. So first of all, for eights, do you feel like it's easy or difficult to say no?
It's incredibly easy to say no.
Yeah.
It's harder to say yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we think about nines? Is it easy or
Mhm.
hard for nines to say no?
I think it's really hard for a nine to say no.
I think so
But
too.
they say no with their bodies and their actions
Mhm.
in a different way, but they
Ooh,
don't
say more about that. Yes, talk
say
about that.
Yeah, so a nine is gonna maybe not verbally say no, but a nine will remove themselves. They will remove their opinions, they will remove their energy. They're a no by almost by abdication is what I normally see. So you're gonna hear a lot more yes from a nine, but you're gonna feel the no in the background
Mhm. Yeah,
and
and it
not
is it's
necessarily be
not
sure where it's coming from.
yeah, it's not in your face.
Mhm.
But it comes through with like procrastination, as passive aggression, kind of like a withdraw, almost like a withdrawing, kind of like
Withdrawing
escape.
of connection.
Yeah, withdrawing of connection. Yep.
And the interesting thing is that the nine wants connection, but when they say yes but mean no. So with nines, it's like when do they mean no? Well, nines are gonna mean no when it doesn't sit right with them, when it doesn't go with the flow, when it's not about peace. But if an action is already being taken, they might not interrupt it, but they will take from themselves the one thing they really want, connection, by
Yeah.
simply not speaking up about it.
Yes, so this is I always use this example in workshops where when I think about eights are the ones if you're at a protest, eights are the ones who are charging the front of the line with the signs, right? Nines are the one who chains themselves to the tree. They're
Oh,
like, you can't take this tree.
yeah.
I'm not gonna be activated. I'm not gonna come at you with a no. I'm just gonna make it so you can't.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's the example
So
I always think of for nines.
I think that I really enjoy that visual. When do they say yes?
Nines say yes when it's easy for everyone else.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is a
Nines,
lot.
you're going to experience nines saying yes a lot. Nines are so helpful, so agreeable. I mean, the words for them are like agreeable, understanding, patient, all of these things. A lot of these are yes words. Like, yes, I'll listen to you. Yes, I'll be here with you. Yes, I'll do that thing. Um, And so you're going to experience a nine as a more of a yes, but it's so important. I like to give nines options because they don't immediately know their no. That is something that we just have to support them with. It's like, do you want this or this? And they're going to say, oh, I don't care. But the second you say, well, we're getting Mexican food tonight, they're going to be like, well, I really want a Chinese.
Yeah, if they feel safe to say that to you. What I've started saying to the nines in my life is say what you mean.
Mm,
So because they're going to say yes so easily, or they're going to kind of skate around. And so I'll say, do you really mean that? Or do you mean something else? Say what you mean. And
mm.
inviting them to tell me what they actually think and what they actually want. You can't say it like, say what you mean. You can't like come at them with it.
Going to be
Um,
helpful.
that would not be helpful. They'd be like, I don't want to be around you. That's my no.
Be like,
Um,
I'm going to scoot my way out of that pointer finger.
Yeah, but I think that inviting them in to be able to say no is so important. But if we're in a workplace and you're not typically going to see a nine saying no to things, like, in verbally at least, unless we give them the space to do so.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Ones. How is it easier or hard for ones to say no?
I think it's really easy for ones to say no.
Yeah, why?
Because there's a right and a wrong way. It's black and white. It's either right or it's wrong. It's good or it's bad. And so it's easy for a one to say no because the standard is clear to them.
Yeah, to them. But are we clear that the one's version of right and wrong is not always going to align with everybody else? So the one might be holding their no sign. Okay, what's the one in a protest?
Oh, what is the one in the
Their,
protest?
their signs are spelled perfectly.
They are, actually, I think I've given the example where like the ones are the ones who organize the
That's what I was
protest.
going to say. The ones are the
Yeah.
organizers of it. They are the
Yep.
people who are like paperwork. Here's where we're going to be. Like here we filed
Yeah.
for the zoning. Like
Yep. Well,
they
and
are.
they're the attorneys and they're the people who are advocating and are fighting on behind the scenes, like the justice people that are seeking justice. They're like the purpose behind the rally, whatever it is. They're the purpose behind it,
Yeah.
the organization of it, and then everyone else is driving the signs and tagging themselves to the trees.
So no's. Ones are gonna say no. I don't know if it's more or less frequently, but it's going to be easier because they're thinking in yes and no. They think in a binary, so it's right there for them. Whereas nines are thinking about what is the yes for every single person around them. That's one of the reasons it's so hard. And an eight
Yep.
is like, what's a yes for me?
Yeah.
Ones are like, what's a yes or a no based on this moral imperative?
Yep.
So and when we talk about yeses, I think that they say yes a lot when it aligns with their morals and values and if they see the greater good in it.
Yeah, and if it stays within their paradigm.
Mm.
Um, ones aren't the type to typically go outside of what their story is. Unless they've done, again, we're doing this from like the
Mhm.
not grown version, the more reactive version of ourselves. And so ones are going to have a really hard time saying yes if it's outside of what they see as normal, natural, right,
Yeah,
wrong.
absolutely.
But and they're not
But
as swayable.
yeah, go ahead.
So eights can be swayed, right? Eights are going to say no, but then you can come with, like have a conversation and get them to a yes. Ones are that's not as possible. When ones believe it's a no, they believe it's a no.
Yeah, and their entire sense of self is actually riding on them being right about
Yeah.
their yes and their no. So, I actually would say like they probably say yes and no, I don't know if it's 50-50 or whatever, but like they're gonna say it in alignment with their values, but like getting them to change
Hmm. Yeah.
because it feels so unsafe to detach from
Yeah.
the right wrong of yes and no.
Yeah.
Okay. Our twos more or less prone to say no.
Oh, they twos hate to say no. Whenever I talk to twos about the opportunity of saying no, I literally watch their ears meet their shoulders and their tensions start to increase. And the twos love to say yes because they want to support, they want to help people, they want to be in service. And the idea of saying no, I tell twos all the time, like you can say no and then not come back and say yes. You
Mm,
can say no and mean it, and that can be the end of it.
yeah.
But twos don't typically believe that.
But if a two says no, what do they believe that they're losing or risking?
If they say, oh, being needed.
Yeah. Like if I say no, they might find out that they don't need me. If they
Mhm.
have to do it on their own, they might find someone else to do it instead, and then I've been replaced.
Mhm.
And
They
so
might
it's
not like me. Or they
mm,
might not like me. If I say no, am I causing a problem for someone else and now they don't like me? Because twos really, they want to be needed, but they also really need to be liked. And
yeah,
so twos will, they'll say yes at the sacrifice of their own needs and their own well-being over and over and over again to their own detriment.
yeah. And I think to your, not to put a too fine of a point on it, but twos twos live in yes land.
Yeah.
Yes to everyone but themselves.
Yes.
So twos will say yes to everyone but themselves. I've watched so many twos, give and give and give, and then cannot, it is the struggle of their life to find that 45 minutes a day where it's either silent or they get to work out or they do whatever. So like, they'll say no to themselves.
Mhm.
Twos say no to themselves constantly and wait for somebody else to say yes to them. And I'm like, don't work that way, team.
Yeah. Yeah, but then that's, for twos, that's why they get resentful because they are saying no to themselves in order to say yes to others. And then when that's not reciprocated or acknowledged, then of course people would get resentful of that, right? Of course that would happen. And so it's all about that ability to balance those yeses and nos for yourself and for others so that there's a balance and like an equilibrium rather than being out of whack all the time. There is a book, I don't know if you've read this one, Whitney, but it's called Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes.
Have I read it? I listened to it on repeat for
Yeah.
6 years to fall asleep. So yeah.
Yeah, so
I
good. So
memorized it.
I actually had a yes year before I even read that book.
Mm.
And it was the best year of my life. Like it was such a good year. Um, but I love, so if anyone that's listening to this is wanting to figure out how to say yes more strategically, because I am a yes person, but I needed to learn how to say better yeses. And so that book was really supportive for me. So if anyone, like for twos and for nines, so far specifically, that might be a really great and entertaining resource to check out.
Obviously one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Let's talk about threes. So when do threes say no?
I actually think that threes are an equal opportunity yes and noer.
Hmm. I see that. I mean, they're gonna say it for them, it's all about clear goals and objectives. I see that if they can see a path forward and they feel like they are equipped to do it, they're gonna
Yeah.
do yes, even if they shouldn't be the one going after that goal. If they can see it and if they can put themselves in that space, they will go after it. But I think it's the converse. If they don't feel like they can reach the goal, they're a no before they even try.
Yeah, usually their no is pretty subconscious. They oftentimes I see with threes that they don't know why they're saying no. And if we dig into that more, it's usually some sort of worthiness or I don't feel capable or I feel like the win isn't guaranteed and so I don't want to put myself in the position to potentially fail. But that no usually happens before that conscious thought even enters. So that's where I see no is threes saying the no the most often.
Well, and I don't even think threes think about their noses as no. I think they think about them as practically choosing a different yes.
Yeah, strategic. Yeah,
Yeah.
strategic.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, yo, you say no to a lot of things because it might be messy for a minute. A lot of
Yeah.
things that you could be
Oh, yeah.
incredible at.
Yeah, because threes will say no if they might make a fool of themselves in front of other people. If other people are watching and it might make you look bad.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm like, most of the fun stuff that you ever do, you're gonna look bad at the very beginning. That's what fun is
Yeah.
all about. Looking a little weird. Uh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Four, yes or no? Where do they tend to lead? Is it easier or harder to say no for a four?
I think it's easier to say no for a four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, their self-attunement. I feel fours as a no in the same way that I feel eights as a no. Because I feel like we are both a no initially because we both need to generate from our own experience.
Mhm.
Like the eight, like you will come at me with your yes, but I go back, I process, and then I have to choose in. And I feel like fours are the exact same way, but they need to do that more emotionally rather than shifting their like gut alignment of like, can I emotionally see my yes here?
Yeah, and I think if it's similar to one, I see a lot of the similarity to ones with this too, because it has to be purposeful, and if
Mm,
it doesn't feel right,
yeah.
it isn't right.
Yeah, yeah, because fours are all about is it aligned with who I am? But if a four really doesn't know who they are, their yeses and nos are going to be all out of whack. Like their yeses, they might say yes to all, like every single hair color of the rainbow, every single tattoo on their body, every single like system that they could be thinking. That, they might have a yes palooza in search of identity.
Oh yes. Yes, I see this. I have a friend who's a four who I see this in them.
Mhm.
Um and but they're very clear about their no's when it comes to political activism and when
Mhm.
it comes to like the way that people are treated and with their children and things like that, like with those big purposeful things,
Yep.
they're very, very clear on the yes and the no.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Mhm.
with their own sense of identity and the decisions they make around that, it's a lot different.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
our fives, are they more or less prone to say no?
Fives are no people.
Nah, no, definitely
Don't
not.
need it.
Maybe tomorrow. Definitely not tomorrow, actually.
Definitely not tomorrow. I'm
Don't waste
just a
my
no.
time with that question. Yeah, fives, but here's the other deal. We can make fun of fives for saying no a lot. They do, but I also experience fives as being some of the most generous yes people.
Yeah.
But it is like you have to jump the hurdle of trust. You have to, like, once you are in with a five, I'm going to probably say this on every single thing that we record. Once you're in with a
Yeah.
five, I find them to be the ultimate yes people.
Yeah, because they don't just give their yeses out willy-nilly. They give their yeses out so intentionally and they have more yeses to give to the people they've picked it for.
Because they believe that their time and energy is not going to be wasted. Like they pick their people and then they pick their time. But I think they do this with hobbies and things like that too.
Yeah.
Because they will choose very specifically where their yes energy goes. But I think there's the space of like getting like the patience to be with a five through a no and like give them the information and let them work through that and let them see the problem from all different angles. Um, and kind of let them waste their own time on their no for a while because they want that autonomy on it.
Yeah, that's so interesting because when we had this conversation earlier this week with our team, we have a five on our team. And we asked her, like, what is your no? And immediately she said, she's like, anything that wastes my time. And what you just said though is so funny because so like fives don't want other people to waste their time. And so anything that feels like a waste of their time, they're not going to do. But fives will maybe waste their own time on the
Oh,
research.
I no holds barred believe that fives waste the most of their own time of any type that has existed ever. And like, and you talk to a five and they're like, yeah, I just piddled about that for days. I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And but it's the thing.
Yeah.
It's always going to be like that because their world is about conserving time and energy. Of course, they're going to waste their
Mhm.
own time and energy.
Right.
But Lord help you if you are going to be the one wasting their time and energy. And but it's the same for eight. Like I can put myself in all sorts of brutal circumstances that I really shouldn't have to pick up. But if someone else is trying to put me in them,
Yeah, that sense of autonomy for both is so strong. You know, but if a five, their yes is really reliable.
yep.
So they're not going to flip-flop on you. Like once a five gives you their yes, that means that they believe it's worthy of their time and their energy and of their emotion potentially. And they're a very reliable yes when they give it.
Agree.
Yeah.
Sixes, are they how are they in their nose?
Oh man. Sixes love to say no. Um, but it's the sixes don't always mean no. They need you to explore the no. And
Yeah.
so if they don't feel like you are saying no, or if they don't feel like you are like looking through all of the potential outcomes, they will do the devil's advocate no. Like I'm going to play devil's advocate, and what about this?
Mhm.
And for me as a seven, that's actually the hardest no for me to like play with and for me to like counteract, because it feels like a lot of energy to overcome. Um, and it makes me have to think about things that I don't want to have to think about. So that can be really triggering for me.
Yeah, I've actually really learned to appreciate the six-centered no.
Yeah.
Like a in a cool way now that I see it, but I think that's the challenger in me. Like I don't mind that I don't mind being in that tough space. I don't mind being backed into a corner because I then like with a six, I kind of get to fight my way out with them. Like they will match my like, okay, let's just go back and forth on this. Um and so I find that sixes are no's up front, but they actually just need to verbally process it out loud. They need to check and see, are you actually tracking this with me? Again, we're going to find that trust, that yeses and nos come back to trust
Mhm.
over and over and over and over and over. And trust, we trust when we feel safe. I mean, these are same words.
Yep.
And so to get a six to a yes, I mean, sixes will say yes when they feel safe. When somebody that they trust
Mhm.
has put it in front of them, it's still going to be like a let me vet it. But the time, I mean, my our six-centered thinking person that is on our team is has been initiating
Mhm.
yeses
Yeah.
lately. And we actually talked about this, and she was like, I am bringing more yeses to the table because there's so much safety and stability and calm in our ecosystem right now. So I
Yes.
think that sixes are really prone to say yes when there is a lot of stability around them and risks don't feel the same amount of risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have that sense of confidence and reassuredness that is helping them be able to, to lean on, when the environment is safer and more steady, their confidence is better as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, sevens. Are sevens an easy no or a hard no? What are sevens' relationship with no?
Well, it's like kind of my least favorite word.
I find that sevens rarely say no in the moment
Yeah.
and frequently say no in the moment where they need to show up for their yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's why a lot of times sevens will be seen as flaky because they'll say yes to something that seems interesting or fun or cool or whatever. But then actually, Whitney, you've said this before. I love this language of sevens will be trapped by their abundant yeses.
Yeah.
So sevens fear being trapped, and we trap ourselves in the word yes.
Hmm.
And so sevens, we're yes people. I mean, that's why we're fun. That's why we're good friends. That's why we have great experiences, right? Because we're trying new food and traveling and jumping out of airplanes and all of the things. And there's not a lot of sevens don't feel safe in the no.
Yeah. But they don't ultimately feel safe in all of the yeses.
Right. Yeah, it's
Because then they're
traps.
not actually, yeah, it's not actually about them. Like this, the yeses still aren't actually about freedom. They're about pursuing the next, the next, the next, the next.
Yeah, it's a distraction from what's real,
Mm.
is what I find. And so when I
And
had my
no,
yes here, oh yeah.
but no can feel so concrete and real. It's a choice in a different way. When a seven says a no, it is a choice in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like,
so talk about what that looks like in me, because we've had this conversation about when I say no.
well, when you say no, you are really clear that you are about to limit yourself in one way or another.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, and you have chosen, I find you to be very considerate about that limitation.
Yeah.
Whereas your easy yeses, you're like, okay, yes, yes, yes. I find of course, it's easier for you to continue the yes,
Mhm.
even if it is actually trapping you in a real life no.
Yeah.
You will continue to choose the yes beyond the expiration date of it or whatnot because of like I would rather live in the fun.
Hmm.
Because when you choose your no, you really have to be there with your no in a different way. Because you haven't, I think with a seven, not just you, but like sevens, the
Yeah.
second you really go into no is the second you choose what you care about.
Yeah, and it feels limiting up to other things, right? It feels like when I say no to something, it feels like I'm closing the door to anything else that could possibly happen with that. However, I've noticed it's really easy for me to say no when something just doesn't make sense. So like,
Mm.
sevens are saying yes to things that are very like joyful, fun, whatever, all of that, which I think it's really easy for us to like think about sevens as just that person. But
But
when
there's the
something doesn't
practical
make
aspect of too.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so if something practically doesn't make sense to me, sevens are really good at knowing when there's something missing because it's that 30,000 foot view kind of perspective.
Yeah.
Sevens know when something's missing and won't they'll say no more willingly and more freely when that's clear to them that there's something that's not right. Like, is this going to waste my time? Same. Is this going to waste my time? Am I going to be mad at you? Am I going to be
Or can I
spiteful?
get to my vision with this, like with this? Or like have you like you're gonna be able to see the big pieces, but if there's huge holes along the way, you're like, well, I'm just gonna step in that puddle and never get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it feels like it's going to be too much work to get out of it, and then it's not going to be fun anymore.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's not going to be joyful. It's not going to, but actually that those kinds of no's I think are really protective of everyone else because no other type really sees things from that high of a perspective. And so when sevens do say no to that, I think it's important that we listen because it's not always just about fun. Ultimately it kind of does come down to that eventually down the road, but
Yeah.
sevens do have that perspective outside of just the what's immediately joyful.
Okay, so let's do our top three most likely to say no and our top three most likely to say yes.
Okay.
Okay, I've got mine.
Mhm.
And
Oh
let's
gosh.
three, two, one. What?
Yeah, I'm starting to figure out my no's because there's so many no's and there's not as many yeses.
Mm. Okay, so starting from the one you wrote down third, do your most likely to say no, three, two, one, and I'll do mine, three, two, one.
8.
I had eight for number three as well.
Okay. And then
Okay,
I had 5.
okay, I had one.
Okay. And then I had 1.
Yeah. So five, one, and eight are most likely to say no. Instinctually, just gut reaction, no.
Yeah.
Okay. And then yeses, what was in your three position?
7.
Same. Your
And then
second.
2.
Yep.
And then 9.
Yep. And 927. And I think, we won't dig into this too much today, but it's curious that all of our yeses are very much coming from the compliant stance. Um, and so that space is, there is so much in us that is driving our innate yeses and nos, and how yes and no is tied to safety and who we trust with that. And I think our next conversation gets to be like, what does an evolved
Mhm.
conversation around yes and no look like?
Yeah, I love that idea. And then 9, 2, and 7 are the positive outlook types. Not
Mm.
the, I think you said with
Oh, you're right. They're not the compliant types. Yeah,
yeah,
positive
not compliant,
type.
but
Thank
positive,
you.
yeah, positive outlook. So it's
Yeah,
there's in Enneagram, there's all these triads and stuff. This is one of the
yeah,
triads, so positive outlook types. What's really funny, I went on a vacation, a girls' trip several years ago, and everyone on the trip was a 7, a 9, or a 2. And we noticed that on there, we're like, oh, that's funny. We're all positive outlook types, but that's a great group to travel with.
Yeah, if one person's making the choice. The eight here is
Oh,
like, nope, 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 nope. No one's the leader. No one's the
yeah.
leader.
We had a very clear leader, but
Oh,
we
okay,
all just
great.
trusted her because
Yeah.
it's our mutual friend that plans travel.
Oh, okay. If that's
So
the
it was
case,
great.
then I'm like, as
Yeah.
long as there's a leader, otherwise I am not going in a 927 group anywhere unless there's a designated leader that I trust.
And that is Whitney's no. That's how easily
And
Whitney
that's
said
my no. I'm
no.
like, no leader, no leader I trust. I bye. Bye, bye, bye.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay.
Uh, all
Well, I
right.
can't wait for next time we get to dig into. I love the idea of taking this conversation a layer deeper so we can keep providing that depth of all of this for people. So
All right. See you in a couple weeks.
in a couple weeks.